Hello everyone, Namore77 here, and I am recording a modding tutorial on World Gen. I've already prepared a few sample files, which will be released to you, so you can use them to help keep up. Now then, like most mods, or at least most normal mods, we will start off with mod loader. So, let's create a normal mod file. I would assume that you would know the basics of creating a block and such before you get into this. World Gen's a bit more complicated than that, and I would hope you understand more of the basics to modding. Anywho, we'll call it mod world gen. Now then, we will open up my template, and we will just copy and paste it over. Now then, we just change the name, fix that much at least, and this is now a stable and working file. But I will explain what's different about this versus a normal mod file. You see, normally in a mod file, you'd get this much and it would be the same. You'd add some block registry stuff there, and then in public void load, you'd add their texture and their recipe and their name and yada yada yada, the normal block stuff. A bit complicated, I have to admit. I still fail at adding blocks myself. Anywho, we're not adding a block. We're not using this. We're not using that registry stuff that would normally go right here. We're going down here. This is what's useful for World Gen. Now then, it's a bit different. Instead of saying public void load, it says public void generate surface, and then it has all these interesting parameters and functions and integers and yada yada yada. You don't have to worry about it that much. This is pretty much world is just saying we're giving it world functions. Stuff like adding blocks. Everyone loves that. Random is we're going to give you the ability to make random numbers. That's awesome too. And you have to have an X and a Z to start on. You don't need a Y because the world's only 248 blocks tall. So you can make the height yourself, but getting this at getting it at X and Z all over the world is just a pain without this kind of code. So yeah, we want that. It tells us, it gives us a place where you can place stuff at. So yay, friendly parameters. Now then, on the inside, for int k, yada yada yada. It's just a bit more complicated than it needs to be, actually. Well, for simplicity's sake, we are going to run this once per chunk. I'm going to make it simple for you guys, because that's just a whole heap of complicated code which you don't really need to mess with necessarily. So yeah, let's make this a little bit more readable, hopefully. Yep. I have no idea if I'm getting this size right or not. I don't think I am. No, I'm not. So, and there we go. After all that useless code, I just simplified this a lot, didn't I? Now then, it probably still seems a bit complicated to you. Let me explain what all this code does. Now then, the reason why this says 16 and this says 16 is because a chunk is 16 blocks long. I'm not sure if I got that math exactly right there due to the randoms being -1. You don't need to worry about it. So we're starting at that X we were given. So we're saying this integer, this number, rand pos X, equals the X value we were called with, plus anywhere up to 16. So this is giving us a radius of placing it within a 16 by 16 block area. A chunk, pretty much. It's a chunk. And we're going to be placing it at anywhere from the height of 80 to 120. And that explains that. So it's going to be a 16 by 16 area, anywhere from 80 to 120 blocks in the air. Now then, this line of code is a little bit more daunting, but I can assure you it's not that complicated. So, new world gen template. Now then, we're going to rename this to our world gen file. We're just saying, hey, I want to be able to call world gen template. And I want to call the method generate. And I want to give it randpause x, randpause y, randpause z. Again, may not make much sense, but we're giving it the world functions. Yay, fun stuff. We're giving it the ability to make random numbers. And we're giving it a location. So, now that this is all explained, this is completely unrelated. It's not even really needed. It just tells what version the mod was made in. Pretty simple. But yeah, now that this has been mostly explained, I know it looks a bit daunting. I don't even understand all of it myself. But yeah, let's create a new file. Now then, you may know what a mod underscore file is, but worldgen is a slight bit different. So we're going to call it worldgen. Now then, the name worldgen is specifically required. It has to have capital W, capital G, worldgen. But you can call whatever comes after that whatever you want. So I'm going to call mine tutorial. Now then, we got a good tutorial file open. Now then, I'm going to copy over my template. And there we go. Ignore this name, it's for another mod that is yet to be released. At least at the time of saying this. So, tutorial. Now we fixed that name issue, I'll go through and explain all this. This is just saying public class worldgen tutorial extends world generator, yada 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 yada. This stuff is required, but you don't have to care about it. Alright? You don't have to care about this little line right here either. But now this line, on the other hand, this you care about. This you should care about more than that. Remember where it says we're going to call worldgen. Well, I got to fix that name. Tutorial. No, I forgot something. Anyways, we're going to call worldgen tutorial. We're going to call this file. And we're going to use the generate method. And we're going to give it these parameters. And the parameters happen to be here too, but under slightly different names. But they're equivalent to the same thing. So, yeah, we now can do a whole bunch of stuff from here. Now then, I've already put something in parentheses. And this is the line that's used for adding stuff. Ignore this, I was just using that for another thing. Anyways, this may look complicated, but you may remember me saying that we had world functions. Worlds, we're using the world variable now, and then we're going to do the function .set block with notify. Now what this does is it places a block in the world, and it places a block of stone at the X. So we're going to be placing it at this, this, and this. That's what it's equivalent to. We're going to be placing it at those variables. They just changed names when we called it over here. We call it the exact same over here. And yeah. Now then, to allow us to shorten the name a bit, we are going to do int stone equals block.stone to block ID. And what this allows us to do is just say stone. We now don't have to put the block or the .block ID part inside of this anymore. Now then, we're going to do something a bit trickier here. Int, actually no, we don't need an int for this. For. Now the fors are a bit more complicated, and I will explain them if you do not understand them. Now then, a for loop runs things a certain number of times, and it's sort of like a while loop, if you know what that is. It says pretty much while let's get a good example here. How about every second I add 1 to a variable like x, if you know what algebra is. Now then, when x is more than 10, stop running it. It's going to run it pretty much, if it runs it once a second, it's going to run it 10 times. Hard to explain to a degree, but yeah, I'll do my best to explain it. Now, inc. Inc is just short for incrementer. It's easier to put it short. Now then, I'm going to code it and then explain it. It's sort of harder to explain it while coding it. That's why I'm gonna wait till the end, so that way it makes a bit more sense. Alrighty then. Now then. So, we have a variable. Now then, incrementer, or inc, equals 0. Now then, this is going to a different section of the for loop. For loops are made up of 3 sections. The first, the second, and the third. This is where we define what our variable is. And this one is what we define the condition is. So now then, while incrementer is less than equal to 4 plus random.next int 7. Now then, random's function like this. We put the name random and we said dot next int. What this means is that it's going to get an integer up to that number we gave it. Now then, integers start at 0, so it's going to be anywhere from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So yeah, it's going to be anywhere from 4 to 10 blocks tall, that means. And then, so now then, if this is true, then it's going to run it. It's going to add 1. So it's going to run it about 10 times, like we were saying. Now then, we do this, and we say, and this is why I had this here, world.setBlock.notify, and we put j plus inc. Now then, we're done. This is a working mod, but I'm going to explain what I just did. Now then, like I already explained the for loop, and if you were catching on, you notice that this is going to increase by 1 every time we go through it. So we're going to go to our world function, and we're going to place a block in the world at x, y, and z, which in this case is I, j, and k. But j is going to, or y is going to be equal to itself plus incrementer. And since every time it's run it increases, that means it's going to place a block at 1 plus in the height every time. So this is going to be equal to 0 the first time it runs. It's going to place this at the original coordinates. Next time it runs, it's going to be equal to 1. So it's going to place at the original coordinates, but it's going to place the block 1 block higher. So this means is that we're going to be placing it anywhere from 4 to 10 times into the air. For loops are sort of the magic of world gen because they save you so much time. In fact, I'll prove it. Because 20 plus 30. And that's going to make it a bit more interesting. Now then, we're going to save the files and copy them in and run them. Let's see. Not the tutorial, or yeah, it's tutorial, but not template. And appears to be working. Just copy. And I'm going to paste it in. Now we just simply run the game and give it a test run. As you can see, it's preparing the spawn area. Normally, World Gen will make the world take a little bit longer to generate, but it's normally dependent on the size. It's loading the world. And logged in. Alright. Oh, here's a few. Take a look at that. Take a look at that. Really, really simple. But look what we did. And that's anywhere from 20 to 50 blocks tall per. And it's placing them anywhere from 80 to 120 in height. And they're everywhere. There's one every chunk. So every radius of 16 blocks, there's gonna be one. And considering the case, I think there can even be up to 5 in one chunk. But yeah, I suppose that ends this tutorial. If you have any questions or requests for modding tutorials, feel free to shoot me a PM on PMC or message me on YouTube. Thanks, and this is Namore77 signing off.